Last week on Something's About to Happen.
God is not faithful just because he loves you. That's a part, and it's a point. But he is faithful because he cannot deny himself. He is so well integrated within his value system, his thinking system, and his action system, that all three work together, that he cannot deny himself. That's why he is faithful. That's why he is called the loyal one. Hebrews 13 verse 8, I am the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. Like Malachi, I am the Lord, I change not. By the way, that's good news in the midst of all the fickleness in the world round about you, in your world, where nobody keeps their word. So I'll be there. And 4 days later, they're gone. I'm with you, I'm in your corner. Yet 5 weeks later, they're stabbing your back. God says, I am not like any of your friends. I'm not like any of those folk in your world. I have not forgotten you. Why? Because I foreknew you. I foreknew you. Before I formed you in the belly, I knew you. And before you were born, I ordained you to the nations as a prophet, a voice. I know you, yet I still called you. I am God, your creator. I will not abort my promise concerning your life. I am in it when you have quit. I am accepting of you even when you are rejected by men. I am standing here when you fall. I am strong when you are weakened. I am healing when you are sick. I am life when you feel dead. I am peace when you are confused. Paul here is giving us an aerial view of God's plan for his people in the heights. God has a plan for you, child of God. God has a plan for all of us in this contraption. God has a plan. Romans as a book is about that plan of God for integrating Jews and Gentiles into one family through the new covenant by faith. You see, the Jews would want to come into the covenant by signs and wonders. The Greeks and the Romans would want to come into the covenant by intellect. But he says, if access is as a result of your wisdom, intelligence, or your prolific intellect, then that means the market woman will have no access to faith. If it's only by signs and wonders, I only generally do signs and wonders for the poor and the broken. That means the wealthy would not have access. But he says, I'm going to equalize it so that you may enter in if you simply believe me. So for all, Jews and Greeks alike, if you have faith, you have access. So that by faith we enter into this covenant. You have to come by faith. In fact, he tells us in Hebrews 11 and verse 6 that without faith it is impossible to please God. That God is not impressed with your money. He's not impressed with your network. He's not impressed with your net worth. He's not impressed with your house on Victoria Island. He's not impressed with your litany of degrees. He's not impressed with any of the stuff you can do. Besides, he gave you all that ability. But what he's impressed with is when you believe him against all odds. That in spite of what you see in your sight, you believe what you cannot see. You walk by faith and not by sight. So you don't come to God because you are smart. You get to come to God because you believe in him. Hallelujah to God. Hallelujah to God. I don't really care what you backslid into or how crazy your situation is. If you stumble back or stutter to the foot of the cross, you'll find that God was there all the time. And he foreknew you would come back. He foreknew your decisions, the good and the bad, and knew that ultimately the right decisions would take you because he knew you would believe in him even when you were enticed by pleasure. Look at 5 people and tell them God has not forgotten his people. God has not forgotten his people. God has not forgotten his people. God has not forgotten you. Child of God, he has not forgotten you. He cannot forget you. I say it again, God has not forgotten you. I feel blessed by this because I have to confess sometimes I do feel forgotten. I feel forgotten by everyone sometimes. I feel forgotten by everybody sometimes. I've helped people who forgot me. I've given money and loans to people who forgot me. I've helped them to fulfill their dreams in the material side of the world, and yet they forgot me. I've stood by people when nobody wanted to stand by them, yet they forgot me. I've opened doors for folk, yet they don't appreciate it. Spit in your face and they forget you. When they were dirty rags and nobody even wanted to use them to try and clean anything, we picked them up, cleaned them up on the instruction of God, yet they forget you. And so it gives me great comfort, my friends, and helps me in my faith to know that God, even though everyone may forget me, God cannot forget you. God has not forgotten you. Oh God, if that's all I said today, it's a message by itself. God has not forgotten you. And when men forget you, it provokes him to operate in his remembrance about you. And he says, I've opened a book of remembrance concerning you, that anytime any of you who believe upon me sit down to talk to one another, I will start making assignment writs in my book of remembrance of the things I will do for you and your children and your children's children and your children's children's children to 1,000 generations, because I will not forget you. I am faithful. I am loyal. I am steadfast. I am consistent. I am real about what I say to you. This is important because the context of where we are now and where Rome was back then in Paul's time is a feeling of total abandonment. How many of you can feel something that is not your reality? So you can feel abandoned, yet the one who owns everything and has everybody's heart in their hands, he's completely with you. But sometimes to show you how much he's with you, he has to allow you to see circumstances that make you feel like you are abandoned. But all the time you were feeling abandoned, he was right there. He's got your back. He says, I'm your shield and your buckler. I'm your rear guard. I'm your help from ages past, a very present help in the time of need. I am there for you. I have not forgotten you. Can I tell you something, friends? We have never seen a year like 2020. Those of us who are living now, it was so challenging to our existence. We were scared. We had fright. We were locked up at home. You had to face the same woman or the same man for 9 months non-stop. You were locked up in the house, depleting your vitamin D, going through all kinds of throes, lost loved ones, lost friends, lost family, went through a time where you were at the gate of the grave, at the door of death, and you weren't sure if you would see tomorrow morning. But look at you. God was still with you. God says, I will not leave you like they did. He says, I'm still with you. In spite of the fact you lost your job, I'm still with you. You lost your house, I'm still with you. You're squatting with family, but I'm still with you. You lost your wages, but I'm still with you. You lost your business, it's so dwindled, but he says, I'm still with you. God says, I'm not like them. I will not abandon you. I want you to shout at 5 people and tell them God is faithful. You ain't going to get away with saying it to one person. You're going to get out of your chair and you're going to preach to somebody, because they might forget it, but God will never forget his faithfulness. Tell 5 people you care about that God, he is faithful. He's faithful. He is faithful. He is faithful. He is faithful. He is with you in the storm. He's with you also in the flood. He is with you in the fire. He's with you in the evil day. He's with you when the sun don't shine. He's with you in the darkness. He's with you in the light. He's with you in the valley. God is faithful. I know the feeling of abandonment. I know it, and it is horrible. You cannot afford to walk in your feelings. You cannot afford to walk in your emotions. You cannot afford to walk in the plight of your trauma or in the stress of your disorder. You cannot walk in your fears, your fright, or your panic, or your sense of terror. Because what you are sensing may not be the truth about your reality. Your reality is that no matter what you go through, God is with you. And so you feel abandoned, but it's just a feeling. I felt was broke, but God had $1 million in another man's pocket with my name on it, but I didn't know. I felt I would not be able to face tomorrow's bills, but a man had an instruction from God. He was struggling with obeying it, but he obeyed. You hear what I'm saying to you? Look at 5 people, tell them it's just a feeling. It's just a feeling. That feeling of abandonment is only a feeling. It's just a feeling. That's what Satan wants you to feel, that you're abandoned. My case in point is Elijah in our text. Elijah is the point that Paul is looking at, and Paul says, has God cast away his people? And Paul said, no, God forbid, he cannot do that. And he uses Elijah as a metaphor. For Elijah has just called down fire on Mount Carmel and showed that there's no God like Jehovah, that Baal and Ashtaroth and your several prophets, you can do nothing when God is around. Then on top of that, he wins the victory against Jezebel and her husband, the king Ahab. But in spite of all his victory, he still has feelings of abandonment. So you've got the car, but you can't enjoy it because you have feelings that you're all alone. You've got the house, and it's a nice one in Ikoyi, but you can't enjoy it because you feel all alone. You feel abandoned, that nobody likes you, nobody wants you. You've got the husband, but you can't enjoy the marriage because you feel alone in your marriage, alone in your ministry, alone in your business, alone in the penthouse floor of your company, alone in your association, because you can be anointed and yet feel abandoned. You can be on top and yet feel abandoned. You can have the victory in receiving all your promises, but yet feel abandoned. And Elijah has the victory. He's won a battle for God. He's won a battle for the nation. And yet he's run to go and hide under a juniper tree. And he's sitting under there saying, I wish I could die now. I want to die. He wanted to commit suicide like Nero. Because he had false feelings. His feelings were not based on truth. They were based on sight. What he could see and what he could hear from the outside was what informed his feelings. And feelings are strong. They're actually given to you to move you. And good feelings must have an opposite. So when the feelings are opposite, those feelings don't move you in the right direction, they move you in the wrong direction. So you have to know when to obey your feelings. So when I have joy, joy is meant to come over excitement about divine purpose. When I have anger, anger is supposed to happen over what is wrong. You hate iniquity, and you should be angry with it. You love righteousness, so you should be pleased with it and move in that direction. So your emotions are given for momentum. They're given for motion. That's where the word emote comes from. Hallelujah. Do you get it? And so here's Elijah. He starts interceding and says, I alone remain. And God said, hold it a minute, boy. You ain't the only one. I have 7,000 prophets that I have hidden, that have not bowed their knee to Baal, nor have they kissed the iniquitous idol. He said, I have 7,000 of them. Can I preach to you for a moment, church? There are things that you are looking at that are not your reality. And you are not seeing correctly. I want to talk to you in a few moments about what you cannot yet see, of what you have not yet seen. Because you may be making judgments about your future and your life based on error. You may be basing your sense of tomorrow on what you cannot see and only on what you can see. And here is the prophet, the one who's supposed to promote and provoke faith. He's walking by sight. Because God has hidden some resources for him that he cannot see. He thinks, I don't have to fight this fight against all these prophets of Baal and this system of Asherah and this king called Ahab and his wicked, iniquitous witch wife. But what he doesn't know is that Elijah, the things you are afraid of, they'll be dead like dogs very soon. What would happen to Jezebel? They'll be dead like dogs very soon. And you can't see how I will do it because you think you're the only voice. One will put 1,000, two will put 10,000, three will put 100,000, four will put 1,000,000 to flight. I have 7,000 prophets preserved for my purpose. So that when I need a voice in the earth, I will have 7,000 plus one. I don't know if you hear what I'm saying to you. God has opened doors that you cannot see. So because all you see is closed doors, you're panicking, you're afraid. God has breakthroughs for you that you cannot see. But because you see breakdown, you're panicking. God has upliftment for you that you cannot see. And therefore you don't trust him. Because you think that your circumstances are created by him and that he has no antidote. I don't know if somebody's listening at me. Don't walk by what you see. Because God is so dependable and he's so resourceful and he's all capacious and he always has enough. He is enough to deal with your problem. And though he may hide it from you because he doesn't want you to have faith that comes by seeing, he wants you to have faith that comes by hearing his invisible word. So you're feeling forlorn, forgotten, abandoned, and that's made you like Elijah. He had the victory over all the prophets of Baal. He slaughtered 450 of them in great victory right after Mount Carmel showed off on his behalf. And yet he felt abandoned and goes to sit under a juniper tree and says, God, take my life from me. Anointed but alone, God's servant but alone, gifted but alone, talented but alone. Nobody left but me, only I remain. And God told him, Elijah, you're losing your mind. This is not how I trained you. Said, you're going crazy, Elijah. I have 7,000 who have not bowed their knee, not gone to kiss the idol. You are not alone. I've got stuff for you that you don't know of yet. I've got blessings for you that you know nothing about yet. I've got breakthroughs lined up like ducks for you that you're unaware of. I've got support and help for you in your city that you're completely unaware of. I am still God. I'm God in the face of Ahab. I'm God in the face of Jezebel. I'm God in the face of COVID-19. I am God in the face of your losses. I'm God in the face of your divorce. I am God in the face of your pain, your affliction, your persecution, your crisis, your chaos, your plight. I am still God. I'm God. I am God. I'm the God who has a breakthrough for you that you don't see. I have a blessing for you you cannot envisage. I have opportunities for you that you are unaware of. I have a destiny for you that you just are unable to see because you're looking in the wrong direction. Stop walking in your feelings. And if you ever feel abandonment, it is a lie. You might not see your source or your resources, but your source, he is still there with you. He is loyal, he is faithful, he is steadfast, he's not like people. And you've got to learn how to ignore your negative feelings and focus your faith on God's loyalty. Can I get a witness from somebody? God cannot forget you. You are not in this by yourself. He says, I have reserves of support that you know nothing about. In other words, you're here looking at your plight, but I'm already lining up an army of blessings, an army of stewards who will facilitate the blessing, an army of destiny helpers and facilitators that once you believe and you outlast this test, that deluge, that barrage of blessings is going to break through into your life. But you can't see it because I hid them in a cave. I hid them where nobody could see them, and I had somebody go and feed them and fuel them and keep them alive because my plan will not fail. My promises to Abraham will come to pass. Elijah, you're not alone. You've got to learn to walk by faith and not by feelings. If I was to walk by my feelings, there would be no house on the rock. Not one stone would be on top of another stone in this building. I want to talk to you about what you have not seen. You keep going on about what you see. Keep going on about no money in the pocket, about the trouble in your life. And my husband is not treating me well, my wife is not treating me well, my children are this, my money is not happening, I can't pay the school fees. You keep going on about it. You keep crying about what you do see, whereas God is talking to you about what he has for you that you do not see. Does not the scripture say, eye has not seen, neither has ear heard, nor has it entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared. In other words, before you got here, I already set it up. That once you can outlast your trial with your faith, it will release what I have hidden on your behalf. 7,000 may not seem like a lot, but 7,000 like Elijah, that's a whole lot. Elijah could move a whole nation. How much more 7,000 like him? But what we tend to see is what your enemy is doing. Yet God says what he has reserved for you, the Spirit of God will reveal it to those who love him. And if you get anything out of today's message, God cannot forget you. Why? Because he's hidden things for you that nobody can touch, but they're kept for your hour of faith. And if you believe, it's going to happen. Some of you just got to make it to the end of this season. So that season may end in December, it may end in July, it may end today. Just make it through. Make sure your faith in the invisible God and his loyalty doesn't dry up. And as long as you outlast your trial and your struggle, man, what God has in store for you, like an avalanche, is going to overwhelm your life with joy, beauty, blessing, breakthrough, satiety. It's going to bless you till you can hardly stand. Great is his faithfulness. His faithfulness is great. He is so faithful that even when you are faithless, he remains faithful. He's so faithful that even when you are foolish, he remains faithful. He's so faithful that when you are flawed and frail and you can't take another step, he's faithful. He's so faithful that when you are weakened till you have no more energy, his strength is made perfect in your weakness. God's strength kept 7,000 where Elijah could not see them. And so Elijah felt the plan of God is gone. My life too is gone. I might as well die. It's hopeless. God said, I've got people for you. You know, folk will leave you, but only because God has better than them to put in place. Remember that. Folk will stab you in the back, but God will put a shield there. He said, I'm your shield and your buckler. And he only did that to reveal to you that that person is a backstabber. Distance yourself. Love them from afar, but distance them. And I'm going to put people around you. So I'm going to take away some and I'm going to replace them with others. Because Elijah felt, I alone. Whereas God had much more help. Paul had the same problem. Went into a city, he did not know that God had turned the city in his favor. He said, I have much people in this city. There are more that are with you than they that are with the enemy. Elijah's servant had the same problem. It was just him and Elijah, and then the siege of Syrian soldiers had come up on the hilltops and were everywhere. And in figurative speech, he was peeing in his pants. And Elijah said, God, open his eyes, because Elijah had been through this lesson. I think it was either Elisha or Elijah had been through this lesson. Said, open his eyes that he may see that they that be with us are greater than they that be with you. God has hidden resources for you. And sometimes it's your trouble that will bring out the faithfulness of God, so you can see that all along he had resourced you in private. And at the right time, he reveals it so that you will know that your strength is not of yourself. Your strength is of the Lord. So that your enemies will see that it is not of your doing. It is the doing of the Lord. It is marvelous in our eyes. And the boy looked and he saw the horses and the chariots of Israel far outnumbering and far greater in Kedar than the Syrian army. God has stuff for you. You're watching by television, God has stuff for you.